evening, everyone. I'm Tandega Kobole. This is Economics Unbound. Welcome to it. Tonight, we talk smart cities. Now, in June, in his State of the Nation address, President Cyril Ramaphosa outlined his vision for a new state-of-the-art South African smart city. He said he dreamt of a South Africa where the first entirely new city would be built in the democratic era, and it would rise complete with skyscrapers, schools, universities, hospitals, and factories. Hello, Nana.
Welcome to our viewers and welcome back, Tans. Oh, I do remember the president's speech. He also said the smart city would be connected to other hubs by a bullet train. But Tans, what is a smart city?
Well, Nana, a smart city is a city that incorporates information and communication technologies to enhance the quality and performance of urban services, such as energy, transportation, and utilities, in order to reduce consumption, wastage, and overall costs. The overarching aim of a smart city is to enhance the quality of living for its citizens through the use of smart technology. Now, Nana, there's a big difference between a smart city and a center of IT excellence. Now, Silicon Valley in the United States is a center of excellence, and so is the city of Bangalore in India. And these play a distinct role in developing information technology capacity and IT exports, contributing to growth and development of human capital and growth in general. But smart cities promote growth and development too, but in a very different way.
Smart cities are hyper-connected cities, technologically equipped to improve the lives of their residents. In Mexico, some neighborhoods are still struggling to get permanent access to electricity. So the city installed sensors to analyze the use of electricity in various sectors, so as to optimize energy distribution across the grid. As a result, less frequent power cuts and better distributed energy. In the United Kingdom, the city of Bristol created the Data Dome, a public platform where information on traffic, air quality, noise, or even the city's governance can be shared. They want to grasp the city's pulse by exploiting this data and give local players, citizens, and entrepreneurs the means to build the smart city that truly suits their needs.
Oh, I see. 6 years ago, a Hong Kong-listed Zendai Development South Africa had plans of developing a similar city. The Chinese developer announced its Modderfontein New City project. It bought a 1,600-hectare site northeast of Johannesburg for the development, which it dubbed as the New York of Africa, with a cost estimate set at 84 billion. But despite the release of futuristic computer-generated images, which led to significant publicity for the project, it was never built. The city was to include 55,000 housing units, 1,468,000 square meters of office space, and all the necessary amenities for urban life in the form of a single large-scale urban district. It was all going to create up to 200,000 fixed jobs for the local community.
Oh yes, Nana. The developers believed that Modderfontein would function as a global business hub and would become Johannesburg's main commercial center, replacing Sandton. Can you believe that? The project was meant to change Johannesburg's international profile by strengthening relations with the Asian companies and corporate interests. However, PhD candidate in geography and his research fellow, Francis Brill, did some research to find out why the Modderfontein project failed.
Research shows that the project was hindered by conflicting visions between the developer and the city of Johannesburg. Rather than a luxurious global hub, the city wanted a more inclusive development. The city demanded that Zendai include at least 5,000 affordable homes in its plans. It also wanted to ensure that the development was compatible with and complemented Johannesburg's public transport system. The city was willing to contribute funding for the necessary infrastructure and inclusive housing. Yet Zendai remained steadfast in its commitment to its vision, eventually deciding against fully integrating the city's wishes into its planning application. This saw the city draw out the planning process. Meanwhile, problems were mounting for Zendai. The owner Dai Zikang was eventually forced to sell his stake in the project to the China Orient Asset Management Company. Rather than continuing with the project, the asset managers sold the land to the company behind the new housing development on the site.
So Tans, the thinking is that as the developments are disconnected from the existing urban landscape, they won't be burdened by crime or informality. However, these projects can take badly needed resources away from the marginalized areas of the city. To make them more palatable to the domestic and international audiences, the developments are usually marketed as smart or eco-friendly. But these developments can fail at the point of implementation. This is because, as the speculative projects, they generally don't recognize the need to fit in the wishes of the local authorities or adapt to the existing city. In the case of Modderfontein, the city government had the capability to push back against the developers and, in the end, tried to shape the project to better fit Johannesburg's urban realities.
Spot on, Nana. We will unpack all of this further with our guest just after this short break. Stay with us. Please don't go away. Welcome back. I'm now joined in our Durban studios by Mr. Bilal Kathrada, who is the IT director at the university there. Welcome, Mr. Kathrada. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, and thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. Can you tell us what the distinction is between a smart city and a center of excellence like Silicon Valley or the city of Bangalore in India?
Okay, so when we speak about smart cities, people generally envision these utopian, futuristic cities with tall skyscrapers full of robot-like people that are super smart compared to the rest of the population. You know, like in the movie Blade Runner, for example.
Or the Matrix.
But a smart city is nothing like that. A smart city, the best smart cities in the world are so smart that you don't even know they're smart. You don't even realize that there's so much going on under the hood. As far as the center of excellence when it comes to technology is, as you say, when you look at the city of Bangalore, which is not necessarily a smart city, but there's a lot of technological advancements going on. If you look at Silicon Valley, for example, San Francisco, there's a lot of technological advancements going on. There's a lot of research, development. There's tech startups that are coming up. Those are centers of excellence. But if you look at a city like Singapore, for example, Singapore is probably one of the smartest cities in the world. But everything is behind the scenes. It's not as if you go there and you can actually see the technology. The best technology, like they say, is the one that's so good that you don't even know you are using it, and that it's playing a role in streamlining your life, in streamlining a society. So that would be, my take on the difference between a smart city and a center of excellence.
Now, how do smart cities work? What is a city brain, Mr. Kathrada?
So smart cities are basically using modern technology, what we call cyber-physical systems, basically real-world systems like cameras and sensors. And these sensors are now all fed into computers, which are typically built with artificial intelligence that can take all the inputs that are coming from these systems and draw up conclusions about things like power management, like we saw earlier on in the program, what's happening in Mexico, like traffic, youth unemployment, a whole host of problems. So these systems are able to guide us as to what are the best decisions we should be making. So that is the definition of a smart city, or one definition of a smart city. But looking back in history, I mean, people and governments have always been aiming to make cities smarter, make cities more comfortable, more streamlined for their citizens. Like if you go to cities like Istanbul that were earthquake prone, so in those cities you find some of the ancient buildings that were built to prevent the buildings from collapsing during an earthquake. Now, as far as the ancient world goes, that's smart technology. It's just that in our times, we have technologies like AI, artificial intelligence, that can actually now supplement everything that we are doing and give us a whole lot more capabilities as far as the smart cities goes.
Now, Mr. Kathrada, presumably the city brain, which sits in a cloud, it offers the city planners a wealth of data that they can use to develop further and improve the lives of citizens. But is it appropriate in a country like ours with this kind of unequal socioeconomic profile and a huge development backlog?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when it comes to the smart cities, so these cyber physical systems are talking to servers in the cloud, on the internet, super powerful, highly powerful computers that are doing all sorts of calculations and arriving at different conclusions. Like a typical example is Singapore. Now, Singapore has a unique problem that typically South African cities don't have, and their problem is land usage. I mean, Singapore is a city-state. It's tiny compared to South Africa, and one of the challenges they have is buildings, using the space effectively for buildings, and not just that, but things like the flow of wind through the city, the amount of sunlight available in livable areas. So what they do is they've got sensors all over the city that are actually continuously taking in data about the flow of wind. And if you need to build a structure anywhere in Singapore, they will model that building using 3D software to see what is the best position and design for that building so it doesn't block airflow, so that other buildings in the surrounds can have enough airflow and they can have enough sunlight. So that is how smart cities typically operate, where these computers are feeding all this information into this cloud servers, into the brain of the smart city, and the brain now gives us all kinds of information about what's the best plan of action. Now, in South Africa, not only is it something that is relevant, it's something that is badly and sorely needed in South Africa. I mean, the whole concept
so
of
you believe
smart
that our president was not just dreaming?
Long way in
So you believe our president wasn't just dreaming, sir?
No, he wasn't. I think I'm with him 100% on the concept of smart cities, but I have a slightly different view on where and how the smart cities should be developed. I don't personally believe that a smart city should be a brand new ring-fenced development, that's separated from our existing cities. I think we as South Africans should aim to make every city, Durban, Johannesburg, Cape Town, Pretoria, all our cities into smart cities, and I think we can achieve that.
Can we do both? Can we have a center of IT excellence where we build an ecosystem that yields itself to innovation, to IT capacity, to the kind of human capital that can not only innovate technologically, can deploy artificial intelligence, and can train other people to have the kind of skills that we need to navigate the fourth industrial revolution and make our cities, each of our existing thriving metropolitan cities, smart? Can we do both?
The challenge with that is that the whole concept of smart actually begins with a problem. The whole concept of successful technology implementation begins with an actual problem. So when we are setting up a city that's isolated or is separate from our existing cities, we don't really know what problems to solve in those cities. But I mean, if you take a city like Johannesburg, for example, now one of the key problems in Johannesburg is traffic, it's a shortage of space. So with those cities, we can already and immediately identify problems and work towards viable solutions to those problems. So I'm not saying that we can't do both at the same time. I think I'm strongly in favor of empowering people in existing cities and developing our existing cities using smart technologies. Both can be done, but I would be in favor of transforming our existing cities.
If you look at our municipalities, we've got billing problems. We've got a huge backlog where our books are not in order. We've got accounting problems. We've got accountability problems. We've got governance problems. Can smart cities speak to those kind of problems? Can they yield solutions to the corruption, the procurement systems, the problems with billing confusion, and collect meaningful data that can help us solve our municipal problems?
Yeah, okay, that's a challenge because, I mean, technology will not solve problems that are created by people. We have to have the will, there has to be the political will, there has to be the determination and the drive to resolve these issues, and then we can use technology to streamline them. Now, if you look at Dubai, for example, Dubai has an app that you can use to report faults or potholes, and even to the extent that you can report corruption. So if a police person or a government official is asking for a bribe, you can actually report that using the Dubai app. Now, whether such an app will work in the South African context depends on what is our level of willpower to fix these problems and to take the country forward, to take our cities forward. So it's an essentially human problem that we can't really expect technology to solve. But if we have the willpower, then technology can take us a long way.
Is it willpower, or is it an ethos of citizen participation that we actually need to resolve some of these issues, Mr. Kathrada?
I think definitely the citizens should not be complacent. We as citizens, we should play a role, we should play an active role in eradicating these problems that our societies are facing, in making our politicians, our ward councillors, for example, aware of the challenges that we are facing. And slowly but surely, if we are critical, if we are not complacent, then we'll definitely achieve these smart cities across all our cities.
Now, let's talk about culture, which is a very human phenomenon. We are people existing in Africa, and when I see aesthetically the modern smart cities, I see futuristic cities that look like something out of the Matrix, and it looks like you'll be speaking to Sputnik any minute. Can we aesthetically ensure that our culture is emitted and transmitted through these, and that the part of us that is creative and speaks from the soul of the country is accommodated?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the key elements of a smart city. That's the smart in smart city, where it doesn't make us into robots, but it brings the technology and makes the technology more human. So rather than making human more machine-like, it makes technology more human-like, and it becomes an essential and integral part of the way we do things, of our culture, of how we live our lives, and it plays a background role. It's not something that's in your face all the time. It's something that is subtle in the background, streamlining our lives without us even realizing that it's there. And I think it's very important that we preserve our humanness, that we preserve our culture going forward as uniquely African. And that's the other thing that I feel that the president should take cognizance of when we're developing and planning smart cities, that every city in the world has different challenges, has a different culture, has a different outlook, and we have to ensure that we are developing smart solutions that are relevant to our cities, our culture, our people, and not try to simply just carbon copy something that's coming from somewhere else. It's a challenge, but I think we can definitely, achieve it. And in my opinion, the best way to achieve it is to let the innovation come from within. Empower our youth to innovate, to come up with ideas for solutions for problems that South Africans in South African cities are facing. That would be the best way.
Finally, Mr. Kathrada, can you think of a single disadvantage of having smart cities in this country?
Absolutely not. I'm so pro-technology, and I've been to Istanbul earlier this year, I've been to Singapore a few years ago, and I think that when I look at what technology is capable of in these cities, what it has done, it's phenomenal. And I can easily see these similar solutions being applied to streamline lives in South African cities. The one perceived concern that people have is that technology will take away jobs. But I don't believe that's true. I think that technology, yes, it does take away certain jobs, but it also creates other opportunities. In the turn of the 19th century, for example, a lot of farming jobs went to machines. But the world's population doubled and tripled and quadrupled, and there's still jobs for people. We just have to find the ways and the opportunities for jobs, for entrepreneurship. So again, to answer your question, I don't really see any disadvantages to smart cities. I only see advantages, and I can see South Africans living much more peacefully, much more comfortable lives in these smart cities.
Well, that's where we have to leave it for tonight. Mr. Kathrada, I can see Durban glittering behind you. I can see Moses Mabhida behind you, and I can imagine it now as a smart city. We will be back with you next week. Goodbye from all of us.